This episode of Cordially Invited is brought to you by Acorn TV.
And we're so thrilled to have Acorn sponsoring this episode of Cordially Invited because, as I've previously mentioned, what I know about British etiquette has all been garnered from me watching British television. Teacups, egg cups, all of it I've gotten from British Mysteries. So
yeah, you are going to nail any afternoon tea situation.
How
at this
full
point.
circle that Acorn Television would be sponsoring our episode of Cordially Invited with Sara Jane Ho.
Yes. Oh, we're thrilled. And Acorn TV has way more than just mysteries. I mean, there's so much great stuff.
Yes, they have obviously my favorite, The World of Mystery. I love my mysteries. They have a lot of original shows that are terrific. They have favorites. They have like classics like a Doc Martin. Can't Stop. They have comedy. They have romance.
So sign up for a 30-day free trial with promo code ACORN30 at acorn.tv. Hey everybody, it's Nick Layton.
And it's Leah Bonema.
And today we have cordially invited Sara Jane Ho to join us. Sara Jane Ho is a Harvard Business School grad, Netflix star, manners expert, and Etiquette Institute founder, and her new book, Mind Your Manners, just came out this week. Sara Jane, thank you for joining us.
We're so excited.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So your new book, tell us everything.
So Mind Your Manners, it's the same name as my Netflix show, and it's an extension of that. It's really for anybody who's interested in human connection, which we as humans, we need that sense of belonging. And coming out of the epidemic, I noticed that, we're just feeling so isolated these days, especially the next generation. So I wanted to come out with something that would really help people be their best selves in any situation.
And I read it. I got an advanced copy. And what I loved is that you have great advice, but you also illustrate that advice through stories from your own life, which I thought was really a nice way to do it, because it was like, oh, she's gone through this. She had that roommate. She had that experience at a party. And I really loved that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've made lots of mistakes and encountered many awkward situations myself. So I wanted to leverage those and share them with everybody because, I'm definitely not Miss Perfect. I'm more Miss Manners with a touch of Machiavelli.
Ooh, what a combination.
What a combination.
Wait, so are you using manners to get what you want?
You can. And here's the thing that some people tell me, oh, I have no manners. I'm too honest to have manners. That really confuses me. I think people who say that, they don't really understand what etiquette manners is about. I always say you can say what you feel and you can say the truth. It's all about how you say it. And that's what a lot of manners is.
Yes.
We absolutely agree with that. I think when people say they want to be honest, they're just saying they want to be mean.
And one thing I enjoyed reading in your book was this idea of charm, versus charisma. And I guess, can you talk a little bit about what is charm and how do we get more of it?
Well, as Coco Chanel said, charm is better than beauty because it lasts longer.
Oh, good point.
And I feel that, when you think about when you go to a dinner party, right, there's always that person who you love having at a social gathering because they have charm. And part of being somebody who really can make an impact and add value at a social gathering, which is something that if you're going to go to a social gathering, you should try to add value. That's the reason you were invited. And, that's why you would want to be invited again. It's to be interested and interesting. Now, to be interesting, of course, that includes reading up on world events, current news, right? Just being aware of things that are going on in the world. And to be interested and to show an interest in other people. I always say that, and I was raised this way. My parents always said, you can learn something from everybody. Doesn't matter how old they are, where they're from, what they do. Everybody has a life experience and story that you haven't had that you can learn from. So I tell my students this too, I see people as a rosebud and you have to open them up. In the book, I also call it non-sexual flirting because flirting is showing sexual interest in somebody, right? If you remove the sexual, it's like it's showing interest in somebody. And so that's part of being interesting and being interested in other people. Because if, let's say, you don't know what to say, right, or there's a topic you don't talk about, that you don't have knowledge on, then approach it from the mindset of, I'm going to learn. I'm a student. I'm interested. And you coax a story out of a person.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Which I feel I loved in your Netflix show, that it was under the umbrella of etiquette, but then as you said earlier, you're really helping people live their best lives, be their best selves. And you pull all these things out of all of your different guests in the different episodes. And I loved it so much. I thought it was it was so great to see people, as you say, blossom.
Thank you so much. It always means so much to me when people watch my show.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's super fun. One thing that comes up, I think, in etiquette a lot is this idea of why should anybody care? And I think you are part of a long lineage of etiquette writers, where part of your job is to try and actually convince the reader why they should care at all about etiquette. And what do we do with this? Because like the people who are listening to us today, they're trying to actually be nice, kind, considerate, polite people in the world. We're not worried about them. It's everybody else. It's everybody else at the airport. It's everybody else at the subway, at Starbucks. It's like, what do we do with these people who actually don't think that this applies to them at all? Doesn't make a difference in their life. Why should it matter? And what do we do to get through to these people?
Okay, so I have a couple answers to your question. Firstly, we're being told by the media, by everybody, to say, you shouldn't care, right? Like, that's the narrative these days. Anti-aging is a bad word. You shouldn't care about aging, right? You shouldn't care about this. You shouldn't care about that. But, what I'm saying is you should be free to care. You should be free to care how you look, how you feel, however you want, right? You should be free to care that you want to make a positive impression on somebody, and you want to form meaningful social bonds. So that's my ethos in everything I do, whether my Netflix show or my book, or I just launched a beauty brand, a wellness brand. It's an intimate care brand formulated with traditional Chinese medicine, which it's called ADVERTISE. So everything I do is about that and helping people move with confidence through the world. And then to answer to your question about all the people that are rude.
Yeah, those people. I've left the house. I've met them.
I would say that a lot of times people are not intentionally rude. It's usually a lack of awareness. It's something that they didn't grow up with. And that's why I believe that the most beautiful gift a parent can give their kids is to teach them good manners. And that this should be a legacy, right? And passed down from generation to generation. And that's why they always say you can tell a lot about a child's family values and upbringing, right? From the way they treat people. Do they treat people with respect? Are they well-mannered? So I think a lot of it is unintentional. A lot of it comes from a lack of awareness because they didn't grow up with manners in the house. But what do we do with those people? Well, I think it's most important to have a dialogue going on. And that's why I've noticed, actually, because I've been doing etiquette for 10 years. When I graduated from Harvard Business School, I moved to Beijing, set up China's first finishing school for adult ladies. But what I'm noticing is that post-pandemic, these 2 years, in the West, there's been a huge trend of etiquette too. When you look at like New York Magazine and Curbed, I love their etiquette guides. Now Vogue is coming out with an etiquette column called Oh Behave, right? And it's something that I think sometimes things have to be broken for it to be fixed.
Oh.
And every time I open the news now, I read a new story about epic rudeness, sometimes even violence. What happened to politicians, at least being statesmen? Look at cyberbullying, right? Like on Twitter, even at school amongst kids. So I think that now we've reached a point where we're realizing, okay, we do need this back in our lives.
So we hit rock bottom,
Yeah.
basically. Okay.
And I really like people, so I care very much.
Right. And now it's time for Intermezzo.
Intermezzo.
So this episode is brought to you by Acorn TV. And earlier in the episode, you talked about Mount Blanc and how there's murder. And I guess the question is, Leah, was that a spoiler?
Well,
Did you just spoil it for people?
It's in the first second of the
Okay.
it's the
I mean, what mystery is there if there's not a little murder, right?
I mean, there's multiple murders. I'm going to tell you that, but the murders.
Oh, is that a
story,
spoiler?
it's a mystery, Nick. We're going to have murders.
Okay.
The story is set off. The catalyst is that she has to go to France because her husband let's just say her husband dies.
Okay. Yes.
We, as the intelligent viewer, know that there's a mystery.
This wasn't just some bad fish.
This was not some bad fish. Let me tell you that. This is my favorite kind of mystery show, is that we have one big mystery happening, which has to do with her husband, but then each episode has new mysteries that she gets involved in because of her particular skill set.
So check that out and sign up for a 30-day free trial with promo code ACORN30 at acorn.tv. Speaking of etiquette, let's talk about American etiquette, because you grew up in Papua New Guinea, and then I guess we're off to Hong Kong and the UK before you arrived in the United States. How are we doing? How are we doing in the United States with our etiquette? How do you think American etiquette compares to some of the other etiquettes out there?
Well, so here's the thing with etiquette, it's contextual. And I would say that it depends on what country you're in, who you're with. So for example, if in the West, let's say you eat your soup, you're supposed to do it quietly. In Asia, and particularly Northern Asia, like let's say China, Japan, Korea, when you drink your soup, let's say your miso soup or whatever you're drinking, you smack your lips to show that it's tasty, right? But to do that, to be noisy while eating your soup in the West would be considered bad manners, right? Or poor etiquette. And so that's why I always say etiquette is really, it really depends on context, who you're with, where you are.
But it does feel like there are places in the world that are like less mindful than others, right? A little bit.
Are you talking about America?
Yeah, I mean, in my travels, it feels like it's a little uneven. It can be a little uneven out there, even with that context. Even in America, like, we know what the context should be, but is there like, are we really nailing it? I don't know.
I think even in America, it's so different, right? The South versus California versus Midwest versus Northeast. And so you have all these microcultures. And, my favorite course at Georgetown, where I went to undergrad, was anthropology. Because I'd lived in all these, I'm a third culture kid, right? I grew up in all these different cultures. And then what I realized was, and anthropology is the study of cultures, right? Study of human behavior. I realized that actually our life consists of multiple microcultures. And I talk about this in the book. And it's not just microcultures where it's like, okay, your friends and then your office and this, that. Within friends, you have like multiple sub-microcultures, right? So your friends at school, or even in a company, different departments have their own little microcultures too. And I often say that it's every time I go into with a new group of people, I'm meeting people for the first time, whether the country or anything. When I enter, I see myself as a microcultural anthropologist. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, what are the codes of conduct here? How are people speaking? What is their accent? What is the slang being used? How are they dressed? What is their tone of voice? And I subconsciously adopt that. So because I spent time in the UK and I spent time in the US, I always wondered, like, how come my accent subconsciously changes depending on who I'm speaking to? Like if I speak to a Brit, all of a sudden I sound way more English. Speaking to you guys, sound way more American. And only later on did I learn that actually it's a way of, it's also subconsciously etiquette, but I'm speaking to be more like you so that you better understand what I'm saying. And so I almost feel like each microculture, each time a new person enters, that's about learning the codes of conduct and adopting them to have that sense of belonging.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, speaking of codes of conduct, Leah, you have some questions.
Yes, we brought out some of our questions that we always go over and over in the podcast. One of my favorites is if you're in a shared laundry room, like in your building has a laundry room, and somebody has left their clothes in the dryer and you need to use the dryer, how long is appropriate to leave their clothes in the dryer before you take them out and use the dryer?
My answer would be depends if anybody's watching.
Ooh, twist. Okay, go on.
And, I grew up in dorms at boarding school, right? New York buildings with like shared laundries and dryers. If there's nobody watching, I take it out immediately.
Oh, 0 minutes.
And then I put my clothes in and then I get out of there as soon as possible. And listen, like nobody can open the door anyway when it's in motion. right?
Okay. Yeah. So we're not worried about sabotage.
Exactly.
Okay. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised by this answer. I was not expecting this from you. I was expecting like, oh, you should wait a half an hour and then you should put out a
It
search
depends
party.
if somebody's watching. So if there's somebody else and it's not their clothes, well, first I would ask them like, are these yours? And they'd say, oh, no. And then I'd say, oh, okay. And then I'd wait 5 minutes and be like, well, gosh, like 15 minutes have gone by and this person still hasn't arrived. I think I'm just going to, and then just go for it.
Amazing. Okay.
Nick and I are on very opposite ends of that spectrum. Nick would wait 3 to 5 minutes and I would
5
wait
minutes.
the rest of my life. I would never take them out. I would blow dry all my clothes and be like, I don't want to get involved.
The next question.
Our next question is, if you had the power to permanently end, we call it an etiquette crime, one etiquette crime, just pull it off, it's never happening again, what would that one etiquette crime be?
Okay, so it's between two. Can I say the two? And then we can
Yes.
choose which
I
one?
mean, we have rules though. I think we said one. All right. We're going to let it slide.
I have 3, so I'm fine with 2.
All right. People who clip their nails in public or not
What
in
is
the
happening?
bathroom.
Why
What
are we
is
doing
happening
that?
with that?
Why is that a thing?
It's so big in New York on the subway.
Oh yeah. No, it's a thing.
Rampant
Yeah.
on the New York subway.
Okay, I thought it was just China, but I guess
Oh,
not.
no.
Oh, no, it's
No, that's global.
very global.
Yeah.
Wow, because in China, like in office spaces, you will hear colleagues like, it'll be like clip, 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 clip. And it's like, no, that's just gross. You should only do it in your bathroom. Even if you do it in your living room, to me, that's gross.
We had somebody write in this week whose colleague was clipping their toenails in their office.
Yeah. Like,
Oh, what's the advice? What do we do? What do we do if
just
this
walk
is
in and
happening?
go,
What do we tell this
"No."
poor person?
yeah. I mean, if it's a colleague, then call them out and shame them publicly and act like it's spontaneous. Be like, is somebody clipping their nails in the office? And then like, walk around and be like, oh, Tom, are those your toenails? And that should be enough for them to put it away. And act like it's like unrestrained. You couldn't control yourself.
Spontaneous is key.
I love this. Yeah. I was thinking I'd walk around and go, oh my goodness, sorry, I thought there was a horse in here. I didn't know what was happening.
But people who do this, I don't think they have shame. So like even publicly shaming them in the office, like is that even effective? Feels like they're immune to this.
If they see that a colleague is discombobulated by this, then they should know. They should have like that immediate reaction. Well, ooh, gosh, am I doing something wrong? And then I'm sure another colleague or two will be like, oh my God, Tom, like put that nail clipper away.
The collective shaming, a group shaming.
And what was your second choice for etiquette things to permanently end?
Okay, my second choice was people who watch videos on their phone in public, especially in small spaces like airplanes or trains. This drives me nuts.
Yeah, and why are people doing this? I mean, because I think we did it. We did an experiment as a society, and we're like, let's give this a try, where we're going to listen to everybody else's stuff. And then I think we all decided, we took a vote, and we're like, no, we don't want that.
Earphones.
Yeah, and I'm the person who like I will call over the stewardess and say, seat 12B is being very noisy. Can you please ask them to pipe down?
Yeah, subcontract that. You don't want to get involved.
I feel like the games, when people have their games on in the high volume and you're just sitting there and it's like ding, ding. And you're like, I'm going to lose my mind.
And Leah, our third question.
Our third question, which we have been, our listeners have been sending in ideas. So it's like we have a running Google Doc of possible answers. It's where would we send all of the rude people in the world to live on an island, and what would the name of the island be?
It would be called Damaged Island, and there should be a lot of therapists on that island.
I love that they'll get therapy. I think that's so great.
So now it's time to play a game we like to call Vent or Repent.
Then to repent.
Which is your opportunity to vent about some bad etiquette experience you've had recently, or you can repent for some etiquette faux pas you've committed. So, Sara Jane Ho, would you like to vent or repent?
I mean, there's a lot for both, But I think it would be bad for my image if I repented.
Okay. All right, let's hear a vent.
So I will vent.
Okay, what has happened?
So I was at a formal dinner, and there were like quite a few tables. It was maybe 100 people, and there was seating, right? So there are name cards, and there was this girl who I knew. She's like an acquaintance, and she was seated at a table she didn't want to sit at. So she swapped her seating card
No, she didn't.
with another table so she could sit at, the cool table or the girl she wanted to sit with.
Uh-huh.
And I saw this and I called her out and shamed her. I said, Valerie, again, the spontaneous, unrestrained, like in disbelief, just, Valerie, are you changing your name cards? Are you changing your seating placement? I don't know how Yvonne is going to react when she finds that out.
And did she swap it back? Did that work?
Yeah, well, then obviously all eyes were on her.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked very sheepish. And then somebody else then, followed up and was like, oh my God, Valerie, what are you doing? Like, swap it back.
All right, so a good lesson. Do not mess with the seating chart. It's done for a reason. Yeah, that is super rude, for sure.
I also love the theme of like a collective. This was also with the nail clipping, like the theme of like, we're going to call it out publicly in shock and have everybody sort of be like, you're doing what? And then as a group, that person gets admonished.
I mean, etiquette does require a group participation. It only works if we all get on board.
Yep.
Well, Sara Jane Ho, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a real treat.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure was mine. It's been really fun.
And of course, we will be sending you a handwritten thank you note on our custom stationery.
Thank you. Can't wait to receive it.
And you out there, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have a question for us or a vent or a pent? Let us know. You can let us know through our website, wereraisedbywolves.com, or you can send us a text message or leave us a voicemail, 267-CALL-RBW. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.